Okay, so this is the next one I'm going to do, and I was going to document it. I'm using a different camera. My phone, I used to use my phone, it's not picking up the audio correctly. So forgive me as I get used to this one. It is a much nicer camera. Anyway, it's the MTH HO scale model. The first thing you'll want to do is go ahead and take out the couplers. Now on this one you don't have to, but that's just what I do on these. It's easier. I had a pair of these back around 2008, and it was a great engine. This one does not have sound. It has a regular decoder. Okay, so the couplers, they're just like normal. Screw on each one, and they pull right out. Some of them have like a cut lever and stuff that kind of gets in the way. This does not. A note before you do take it apart. There is your handrail. If you have some plastic, like a little plastic wedge or something, that's probably the best thing to use. Not what I'm doing here. So you just pop that loose, because when it comes apart, in order to take the top part of the body off, you have to do this on both sides. And I usually take them completely off after I get the shell off, just so I don't lose them. The other thing you'll have to do is, starting here, I usually take my fingernail right on the upright and just press as I push with my other thumb. And it'll snap right off. It's just kind of snapped in there. Let's see if I can get two in a row here. This one might be, this one might be glued. I did get this. It wasn't new, it was used. It's in good condition, don't get me wrong. It's just, I think that one might be glued, so I have to be careful on that one. And you will have to go through on these three and do the exact same thing. Just pop those off and just make sure your grab iron here is loose. And it goes into the cab. It'd probably help to go ahead and pull that out too. Then we'll go from there. Okay, so I got that off there on both sides. And you just want to bring the handrail up into the outside. Yes, someone had glued that, so I'm going to have to touch that up. That was pretty nasty. And then you want to make sure, same thing, the handrail's on the outside. Now here's where I've seen online where people make a really big deal out of this, and it's really not hard to do. I'm not going to be able to do it with the camera running. But let's see if I can. I'll just give you a basic overall of what's going to happen here. Down inside the truck, a lot of people will show you got to take off the bottom, and then you pull the sides off, and then take out one of the wheel sets. Can't remember which one, don't care because I don't do it. And same for the back here. And oddly enough, it's a different wheel set. I've got just a small regular screwdriver. There are no screws, but there is two little tabs, I believe. I'm guessing, but once I get it off here, I'll show you. There's like a tab here and a tab over here, and then up here. I'll have to shine some light in there to see it. It's the same deal. You do not have to take all this apart. What you do is you carefully go in, press on the innermost part of the tab, because you want the body tab to be going out. Same with the other side. You want it going out. And again with the back. So there's just 4 tabs holding this thing. I'm pretty sure Kato used to do that as well. And that's why I always pick up locomotives by the gas tank. It's just the safest. I've lifted up some and the tabs don't hold very well, and then the train starts to fall out from under it. So I'll locate those tabs. I'll point out exactly where they are, and once it's lifted, you'll see where those are at. And again, it's not hard to get. Once you see it, you may have to, move the truck around just a little bit as you got your little screwdriver, and you just pry slightly as you have to have it off lifted, So I usually just hold it somewhere in here on the walkway, because the walkway is separate. And then when I get those loose, I can just wiggle the body and it'll come off. And what's kind of strange, like I said, that the walkway is a separate piece, so it will most likely stay behind. And you have to shift it. I think you lift it, well, when we get there, I'll show you, but you have to kind of lift it up off of the front end, and then it moves back a little bit. So you would not want to glue the walkway to the body. You would not get it back together, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so the first tab on here is, we're looking at the back of the locomotive, is just in front of this wheel set. And the other one, let me tilt it a little bit. You can see the bell. Okay. Right about where my fingernail is. There we go. Just at the tip of my fingernail there. You see a slot. That's where the other one is. And of course, the other slot's going to be on the other side. Right there. So that's the locations. Okay, so we got the shell off. All I can say there is patience. You can, like I've seen other people say, you could pop that off and take your wheel set out to get, it's easier to get in there to get it. The problem is, remember, since you're trying to push the tabs out and use your other hand to kind of wiggle, so you're trying to use this to push your tab out and down a little bit. You see what I did in the back here is, it's probably hard to see how close I can get in here and focus it. And that's one of the reasons I want to start using this camera, because I'm extremely close in there now. Carefully pry. There's like a beam here. It's part of the metal. Go between the plastic and the beam and see if you can't get the screwdriver under there. If it doesn't want to budge, don't overdo it. The tab's not released yet. When the tab does become released, you'll start to see it. There's your tabs. So you'll start to see that tab come up as you're pulling, because you can never set it down. The weight will just keep on making it want to snap back in place. So, like I had said before, I hold it by the walkway, have it off the ground, and then have to be looking down in there, and just, you gotta have patience, carefully wiggle it. And then when it comes out, I put the toothpick between the walkway and the metal. See that? You can do it up here the same way. I just kind of walked my way around till it was free. So now that I have that off, I'll go ahead and flip this over and you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to try this on auto, but I just have a feeling it's going to struggle like crazy. So yeah, your walkway stays behind. The whole nose, the interior of the cab, everything comes apart here. Later I will remove the cab and get up inside there to redo just the headlight, because the way they've got this, let's see how this does here. It gets there eventually. Because your headlight and then these outboards are your number boards. And on my last one, I just left those as is and just removed the wire for the headlight, because I put the headlight right on. Let's see if it'll pick it up. It's hard to see. When it's apart, it's gonna make a lot more sense. Okay, I'm pointing. Yeah, you can kind of see that reflective surface right there. That's the end of the light pipe for your headlight. And then it's hard to see it, but there's one on each side also. That's for your number boards. The number boards I leave alone because they're bright enough and they actually look pretty good to me. They're much smaller than what you normally see on HO scale, but on this locomotive they are small, so they did a good job. This is where it sucks horribly. They have this little, it's like the first thing to go in the trash. This little board here, I'm probably not going to have much luck popping it out, but there's two LEDs on it, and what happens is the LEDs shine into the light pipe here. The light pipe goes down under the walkway and then up into, let's see here, it's probably not going to let me, no, that's already been broken before. It just popped apart. So what I do is I take the this whole walkway, I just take it out, and then underneath, let's see if it'll, I'm probably going to end up having too much in the way. So yeah, you lift up on the front to get it clear, and then it slides back, and that's what I'll do, because it actually goes under some of this. It's hard, you can't see it really, but I'm telling you, you cannot lift that straight up. So you have to lift the front and then slide it back just a little bit to clear this back here. Okay, so that's exactly what I did. And to make it easier, just because the wires were fighting me a little bit here, there's two screws where this thing mounts back here. I'm not going to use this. All that is for your backup light. I put an LED directly on the light, pretty much in the center of the screen there. You can kind of see that clear piece. I put the LED directly on there. Once it sets up, I go around it and just paint it black to make sure there's no light bleed, because there is vents in the back where you can see right through it. This is that crappy board that will get completely yanked out. It's got a few connectors on this. I'm not sure what it's for. I'm going to gut it. So, okay, it had a spot for an 8-pin decoder. It's just a Digitrax decoder. So there's just a piece of tape on here holding this thing. And so you got that. Oh, I see. And then they tied in the extra functions back here for your ditch lights. Okay, that's how that works. Because you wouldn't get ditch lights through your 8-pin. But all this is getting yanked. The decoder, the board, everything. So the other thing, I'll go ahead and just remove this plastic thing. Then there's a board underneath it for the front lights. Alright, so I'll remove the board. If it doesn't have sound in it, it's going to come with that board. This, okay, that's the yellow and white is for the motor. I'm just going to cut it off. This plug here basically is the main connection to this board, and it's going to get cut off. This will get cut off. The only thing I'm going to keep unplugged and set it aside is this, so I can get my number boards. Like I said, they work fine. That's the only light that is going to be left on this thing. And I believe it is, let me double check here. Yeah, the brown wire. Yeah, see, this is not focusing very well. That's why I was wanting to do it manually. So the brown wire I will unsolder and take off there. So the other two LEDs, just by the way the board is got the traces, is paralleled. So let's see here. Not that it matters a whole lot, but the orange is positive. I mean, it does. You get it backwards, and they're not going to turn on. The orange is positive, and the purple is ground, and it says it on the board. I'm going to flip over because this thing is just not focusing for crap. There you go. So the orange and purple will stay, the brown wire will get desoldered, and then that middle LED will be dead. Okay. Like I said, this will go. The rear light will go. Alright, all I did is a couple of quick snips. Wish this could have been a little longer, but it went into a little harness, and I cut it right up to where the harness was. I'll solder and wire it. The fewer the connections, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Like I said, this was for the motor, so I snipped it by its harness. So all you see here is the pickups for the trucks. I don't like to reuse what's in these. Both these fell off, so I'll glue these on. They go up underneath. Yeah, up underneath here. It's a little spacer for both of them. So I'll glue those back on. And then, I'm not sure which side, but you'll go in with a screwdriver edge, or your X-Acto, whatever you feel comfortable with. I feel pretty comfortable with my X-Acto, so that's what I usually use. Yeah, it looks like it's this side that you go into because it overlaps this way on both sides, and that's how the tank will come apart. So just went in with the tip very carefully in, and then twist kind of back like this, in the front and the back, and then these will slide off to the sides. The one side that has the air tanks is yeah, and that's this side. It's a little trickier. Not sure if it's hanging up on something. Again, it's a patience thing. You just kind of very carefully wiggle it. There we go. And then we got that piece on the end you want to be careful of. Now this one didn't have sound, so I don't know what we're gonna, I don't expect to find anything. Okay. So that's where this 1-inch speaker, round 1-inch speaker, will go right down in here. And what I usually do is I'll take a drop of CA, and on the speaker edge on the face, I'll just, in 3 places, just put a light, very light dab and press the speaker down in there, and then let that dry. When it's totally dry, I'll go over to the Elmer's glue, and then I'll use a paintbrush and go around the rim. Now, this lower cup, I did notice on the other one, they had, if I can get it out, I'll show you. That is not going to be enough airspace. Once that speaker is in there, the magnet's going to come up almost to the cover. So the other one, they did it right, whoever installed it. Come about over here and you make yourself a straight cut, and then follow the inside here and cut that. So you've got like a small D, and it's only about 1/3 of it. And that's what's going to allow your airflow. Now when you have your speaker wire soldered on there, then you can just feed them. You want to pay attention that this notch is on the outside, see, because it goes into here. So the speaker should be orientated so where you solder on your speaker wires are on the opposite side. And then when you go to drop your wiring, I usually just put one down each side. And of course the same is going to be true on this end. Exact same setup. They'll come out on the top. You want to wire these in series. If they're the Soundtrack's 1-inch speaker, they're going to be 8 ohm. The load for the decoder should not exceed 8 ohms. So when you series them, it'll become 16. And a lot of people think right away, oh, you lose half your volume, just like that. No, you don't. You lose a little, but it's nowhere near half. And it's easier on the amplifier as well. So you want to make sure those are series and not paralleled. If you parallel them, be a 4 ohm load, it's going to burn up that audio amplifier. So I'm going to glue those back on. Like I said, I just put a little, like a drop of CA, and then just kind of dab. You just don't want to get too close to this hole, because when you know, squeeze this down, that's for your coupler, and if you get glue down in there, you're going to have trouble getting your coupler screw back in. You know, both these out. I'll go ahead and cut those. I'll get a micrometer. It's not like it's something that needs that kind of accuracy, but what I like to do is just make sure that they're both the same. And when I'm cutting, what I do, if you try to do you try to cut with your blade, and I've mentioned this before in other videos, with the sharp end, that's fine when you first put your line across there. I'm gonna use something with a straight edge, come across there with that, and then after, what you want to do is come down almost like straight down, what's called perpendicular, and carefully go over that line a few times, so so it doesn't want to, so it stays in that path. If you try to go this way, it just wants to wedge itself in. But if you turn around the back way and pull along your line, it'll start pulling up, carving or cutting out the plastic, and it'll come out like a little, almost like a little pigtail or whatever. You just keep doing that until you're about all the way through, and you can just have one small section that you're all the way through. And I bet you, oh no, I do. I was gonna say, maybe I don't have it. It's kind of rusty for whatever reason. Anyway, a little razor saw like this will finish, and you want to stop just when you come up to this edge here, and then the same thing, you just run your blade. You won't have to do the original sharp side, just you can go straight to the back and just carefully keep doing it until you go all the way through it. And I'll show you how that looks when it's done. It takes a bit. Alright, so I got that cut. And it's perfectly fine to use a, wish I would have remembered to mention that before, an X-Acto blade that doesn't have a real fine tip on it. See how mine's broken? That happened when I was dragging backwards, like I said, to open that. You don't want to use a new blade, even though you think it would help. It'll snap off the little tip in the plastic and then kind of just be in your way. Anyway, so that took somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. And then you just need to, I just went through and cleaned it up a little bit. And then just need to do the same thing with the other one. It takes a decent amount of pressure to hold that thing in place when you're doing, what I said, dragging it backwards to do the cut. Now when you come around the back side, that lip actually acts as a guide. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be, jagged or whatever, and then you can go back and just kind of, I do go back and just carefully smooth it out. So once those two are done, because like I said, when these go in there, they'll go in like so, and I do put a tiny bit of glue on the back side, anywhere you can eliminate vibration, because on the last one I did, there is a little bit of vibration. I know it's not the speakers, and I'm fairly certain it's not in the fuel tank area, even though this has a lot of parts, and you might think, wow, that's, you got these cups and all, and I do the same thing. I put 3 little drops of CA, and then connect that, and it's not going anywhere. So when I drop it in there with it's not a drop, it's more of a dab, kind of in the middle of each one. Drop that down in there, and then you'll have your wires from your speakers. Just make sure you observe polarity. I just usually go ahead and use red and black, whatever you want to use, just so you know, because the speaker will have a little thing on it telling you which side is positive. A little trick to that, if you haven't done this before, and I'm sure most of you have, put one finger on the speaker and then be holding your speaker wire, and then the other hand can be soldering. And the reason is that little magnet will want to jump up on the end of your solder pencil or station, whatever you're using, and that's not a good thing. So anyway, I'm trying to think what I want to do next here. Oh, the last time I put the decoder up here, it was the Tsunami 2, it's an EDM, and this little nub here was not an issue. It's really not an issue anyway. I mean, look at that. It's got all kinds of room up here. And for as much room as it has, I guess because it's long too, this has got to be the heaviest engine I've ever worked on or owned. But what I did do is back here, it's where I put the current keeper, and I usually just use, like I said, a little bit of glue and tack a few areas and set it down. This little nub here used to hold the old tray that held the old electronic board. I unscrew that and get that out of there. This doesn't get in the way because the decoder rides right up and it's about the width of the frame. But back here, that is in the way. So what I typically do, just go ahead and Dremel it off. You can use or they like little vice grip type things and squeeze hard enough and it'll break most of it off, but you'll still have to use something to smooth it flat, or like I said, at least that's what I do, because by the time we're done here there is going to be a ton of wires. You have plenty of space, don't get me wrong, but it's just nicer to make it as easy as possible. So I went ahead and broke this piece free. It's kind of the walkway, and before that carefully took off the ditch lights. They were already broken in those 3 spots you see, but that's no problem. Once it's back together, I'll carefully glue that and touch it up. So yeah, removing those carefully. Again, it's just a patience thing more than anything else. And I suspect you can see the light pipe, and what a joke that is. Trying to run light from this side out that front. I think they used a little too much glue. That far one with a little yellow on it, that's probably gonna be fun to get out. But I'm going to remove the light pipe completely because I put the LEDs right up through these square holes and into the ditch light housings. So this was, yeah, it does have a good amount of glue. You can get it from the bottom. It has a little lip, and that's where I'd suggest starting. Because on the back here, kind of pry and then go around. I was using the X-Acto blade, trying to get in there deep and just twist a little bit. And you're going to hear some cracking and popping, as long as it's not breaking the walkway plastic. And sooner or later, it's going to come out. I'll probably lightly sand that down, and anywhere on the bottom that shows glue on it. And then when I'm done, I'll put that back on and just re-glue it into place. It doesn't take much glue. They used a little too much. Okay, so I got it out of there. It wasn't easy. I don't know if it was done by the factory that way. But those 2 front pieces that go up into the ditch light housing were glued pretty good. So again, all you can do is, what I did is I just kind of scraped around where the clear went through here on the back side. Just carefully worked that until, and then kind of pressed on the table because those were sticking out, and one popped. And it didn't take much. The other one, I had to, the one I suspected, the one that had more yellow, I had to work on that a bit to get it to pop loose. But yeah, this thing's a joke. There's just no way. you're going to get light through there very well. So what I'll do is I'll end up cleaning up the opening a bit. It has a tiny little lip on it. And then I'll come back over here, and really all I care about is the bottom of the housing. Make sure it's all clean, and so when I go to put it back on there, it'll be a good clean fit. And then probably the next step I'll do is go ahead and take some of these. I think these are 603s or 604s. I'm not sure which. And that's what I use for the headlight, the rear light, and the ditch lights. So once I solder those wires on there, I let the wires take the same path. They'll drop right down in there, come over and back up, because anything back here comes up into the nose, just like the LEDs were before. So, and then these are the LEDs that I use for they're about half the size, for the truck lights and the step lights. I'll use those. So I think that's probably gonna about do it for tonight. I'll start fresh sometime tomorrow and go ahead and, like I said, clean that up and get those glued and set, and just make sure that those openings are nice and cleaned up, squared away, so the LED will go up in there with no problem. And then the fun part is I'll put a little bit of glue on the wire, because I think you'll be into the wire portion, or I remember doing so. So you got to look through the lens as you're putting the LED up inside there and center it. If you don't center it, it's not going to look right. Oh, and I do paint the inside of these black. And yes, it is a big pain in the butt to not hit the back side of the lens. I guess I could just pry that lens out, but I go in there with a very small paintbrush and paint all that, because these are so much brighter. It's not designed to block out that kind of light, so that's why I do that. And then to take this apart, you just spread out the sides of these. Now this one side, yeah, these two pieces here kind of get in the way, so you really have to do some pulling. You can see I can pull on it. It's not hard, just if you're trying to slide that off, it's not going to come off, and that's why. So that's exactly what I did, is just carefully pull. This side has to come out further than this side, but anyway, you just kind of carefully pull, and then part of the cab has a channel, and it just pulls straight up. Like I said, this side's going to fight you a little bit, because it's going to clear these two features here. And then the next and probably last thing I'll do here is, well, let me just pull it. I need two hands. All So it's really the window on each side that holds the cab. It's got just a little notch on the side there. So when you press the cab out just a little bit, if it doesn't come out easily, then you'd get something small between this here, the clear plastic, and the side. It'll pop right out. And then down in there you can see those 3 tabs I was talking about, your headlight and your 2 number boards. And then that piece, black piece, is what keeps everything in alignment. I'll pop that off, because I'll take this headlight one and I'll cut it way up here, smooth it out, and put that LED on there. Last time I just went ahead and took the number board, what do you call them, light traces or whatever, and glue those to that black piece, because it's easier that way. They have little pegs that go in those holes there. Now the middle one, I won't be using the holes, but you get all 3 of those pieces trying to float around, and they come apart. So that's why I glue it onto that black piece and then slide it back in there. Now the last time I did it, because it's kind of difficult to get it back in, it popped the number boards out, and I had to put those back in, just a tiny bit of glue. And then you got a little cab. That dude's got a suit and tie. He's going somewhere important. I don't think the last one had that. But so yeah, I just keep stripping these parts away until that's about as far down as I need this. See, the last one you couldn't see up through there like that. There was little pieces of plastic over that. So I may take some of my black plastic and do that follow suit. It didn't look factory. It looked like someone had snipped it out to cover those openings. But yeah, I'll probably do that. Alright, so I'm getting ready to do my first ditch light. I kind of want to get that all put back together since it's broke. And I went ahead and cleaned it up and glued the pieces on there. Went ahead and painted the inside, like I said. I like to paint around the edges of the LED as well. Just kind of help direct where just make sure the light's coming out the front. Alright, so what I do is, you can use double stick tape. I like electrical tape because it's pretty gummy. I'll say right now, I know I over explain a lot, so if you're like a veteran installer, you got a lot of experience, you're probably like, this guy goes on and on. But I like to cover some of the tricks I do that maybe some people don't do, not in this specific case, but all the way up to beginners. Because there's no reason why beginners can't jump in and practice and do this kind of stuff. Add these extra lights. It really makes it, when it's done and I look at it, I don't know, it's pretty cool. I mean, if it wasn't, why would we go through all this work, right? So I've got I know it's a 600 series light. I will try to find, because I only have a few left, I'll try to find the part number. And I got this from a friend, so I have no clue what number it is, but there's a company called Mouser Electronics, and they have so many things, it's just insane. So when I have the time, I'll get in there and I'll try to find the part number on this one. I have a part number for the 0402s. I'll try to remember to put those on there. Anyway, there's a little mark on there. Hopefully you can see it. I got zoomed in about as close as I can. It looks kind of like a T. So above the T, that's your positive. And what I normally do is I will just, let's see if I can catch this on camera without boogering it up. These guys are small, so you cannot spend a lot of time putting heat to them. And I think I got it. I think I got too much actually, but I just come down for just, like a fraction of a second there and put that on there. Yeah, I think I did, because I'm trying to do two things at once. I usually have my magnifying glasses on too, but I'll go in and just tap both sides. The type of solder I use, I see a lot of people using this rosin or using flux. I do not, but you need flux. So this is a rosin core. This is old. So there's the size and the part number. I don't know if they still sell it. It's a 6040. And in the center of the core, if I were to cut that with an X-Acto, you would see that it's almost like it's like a little pipe, and in the center is your flux, and it's so much easier, and you're getting the amount you need instead of having to brush it. I can't imagine trying to brush that, let alone the one that's about half that size. So anyway, I go in there and I'll tin those, go in, tin my wires, and then what I'll do when I'm ready to go, is I'll get the wire right about there. And what I do is I put the solder tip. There's a reason why that wire is that long and tinned, so I can take the tip of the solder iron and put it on the end of the wire, not just the end, but in just a little bit, and that way you get a good flow. I'll put a little solder on the tip again, always putting just a tiny bit on there, and it runs the heat right up along that wire. And you'll see, like I said, I wear these glasses. I'll show them in a second here. That magnify 3 to 5 times, because especially on the smaller ones, I couldn't do it without it. But you'll see the solder that's on here. Now I got a big old clump. I hope I can work with that or clean it up. The solder will pool right around that wire, like it normally would, but just on a smaller scale. And then I remove the solder iron, and the way I do it is I pull it directly away from, kind of like, see the direction the wire is pointing. I pull it away in that direction, and the reason why is sometimes the wire wants to kind of stick through capillary attraction to the end of the solder iron, and it'll pull it right back off your solder joint, and then you got to start all over. The other thing I do many times, especially on the small ones, is I'll put a very small bend or curve in the wire, so when I press it down on here and solder it, it's coming off nice and straight and not on some weird angle. Because when I have both of these in there, I want both wires coming off, next to each other. And when it's one unit, then I guide it up inside the ditch light housing, like I said, with a tiny bit of glue on it, and then just let it set. And then I'll come back and maybe add just a little bit more. And I typically will only do one side at a time when I add a little bit more. And the reason why is because when you add the CA, it softens the first application. Your first application should be almost next to nothing. Like I said, I take my knife, put it in the little drop, and there's hardly any on the tip of my X-Acto blade, and I run it along the side of the wire I want to stick, which is going to be the same side as the LED's facing. And then I just kind of push it up in there, look through the lens, get it where I want it, kind of hold it, kind of blow on it a little bit, and then when it finally stays in place, I put it down and go do something. Come back 20 minutes, half hour later. I use medium viscosity. Hobby places, you know, they sell it. I was using Loctite, because you can get that, you know, Home Depot or Lowe's, but they didn't have any this time, so I got Gorilla Glue, but it's CA. I can't pronounce the full long name, but it's basically super glue. So when you hear me say CA, that's what I'm using. Strong stuff. It's meant to be a permanent bond. That's why when they put some in here, I got pretty nervous trying to get that light pipe out of there. So let me go ahead and solder this up, and you'll see. I'll do one side and then you'll see. Okay, one down. Yeah, I put a pretty big nasty little blob on there. You don't have to, I mean, it's such a small amount, you don't have to use desolder braided wire or anything, but these things are pretty sensitive, so when you solder it, you put the little dab on each pad. You do want to make it fairly quick. I put too much on was the problem, and to take it off I just kept wiping the tip off completely, and that's enough for it to attract back onto the tip. I had to do that a few times. That's why there's a big old burn mark on the tape, because I put too much on. I like the electrical tape because I can get in there with my X-Acto knife and just walk it around and get it exactly where I want it. I like that angle. That way when my fingers come in, it feels natural. And my other hand coming in with the iron, everything just comes together nicely. To test it, I'll pull it right off the tape. It's not 100%, but if it was a cold solder or bad solder, many times that LED will come off. So what I do now is I'll just come in with some very small snippers and snip off the extra, and we'll go ahead and do the other side. Alright, so there we go. I want to make sure the wires are kind of not sticking out too far, because I have to go up through that tiny little hole. So the side of the wires that are facing us, that's where I'm going to put a very, very thin amount of glue. And the reason why I say that is because it's going to dry so much faster. I've got steady hands. I wish there was a way to kind of clamp it, but anyway, I'll stick it up through that square. I'll see through the lens when it's aligned, and then I'll move it forward so the glue can go ahead and touch. And it typically doesn't take more than 10 to 20 seconds. And then I just very carefully let go and just hold it for maybe another 30 seconds. Lightly blow on it. There's a trick to getting it to dry faster, but I probably wouldn't recommend doing this near anything that has windows or lenses. Is, you know how you blow on a window, it's hard to describe, but you'll know what I mean, and you purposely fog it up. That will make the CA dry a lot faster. But in this case, I've got a lens behind it, and I don't want to take any chances of clouding that. So, but in other cases where it doesn't matter, that humidity from blowing on it. I'll go between blowing on it where you have a little bit of the condensation to just regular blowing back and forth, and that will speed up the drying time. Unfortunately, in this case, like I said, I can't do it. The result on regular plastic to plastic, I don't have a piece laying here, but if you do that, you're gonna have some, like almost like a white residue, and for the most part you can wipe that off, or in many cases I will paint over it. But like I said, if I was doing something that was inside this cab and gluing something, and then all of a sudden you know, you start blowing in there like that, you will put a nasty white film on your plastic windows, and you'll have to get in there with like a Q-tip or something and rub and just hope all of it comes off. So anyway, that's just a little pro tip if you're not familiar with how the CA will react. It's probably pretty hard to see here, but the LED is in place. I put it in the first time and I didn't have patience, and it started to move around on me when I put the second coat of CA on. Then I realized I hadn't painted around the edges of the LED, so I had to pull it out and do that. And one other step that's very important, test. Make sure you test your LEDs. I just use a little old school transformer. Alright, so I finished up getting the wires out the bottom, and then what you got to do is basically take the same path that the light tube took. Just goes over and back up through the holes. And where it comes up through here is where it will be behind the nose. So that's finished. I'm not going to go ahead and put all this damaged portion together because I will be flipping this around a lot and it's going to be pretty fragile. Parts that aren't broke will flex, but those parts won't. I'll glue them and they'll pop right back off. Alright, so what I'm going to do next, well, I did two things. I'm going to do the truck lights. I just went online, saw about where they're located, and dremelled me a little slot. And then what you'll do is put it back on the frame and carefully, let's see how close I can get this. It's one of the main reasons I wanted to switch this camera. Okay, you can see this line was basically where I saw it on the internet, where the truck light is. The other line that goes this way is when you put this this piece back on the main frame. You score a line is right up against the metal. So now I see where I can run my wire, and I want to go just beyond that line. It's done on both sides. I even made a little area for the wire to come around and up. You can see those little notches. So the other thing I'll need to do is stair step up. So I got some 40 thousandths thick styrene here, And I'll cut a little piece and glue it in place. After that, I will, between focusing and light, this is difficult. Right here, I will put a step light on the bottom of the second step. And I'll do that on all four corners. But this model is so, the tolerances are so tight that I tested it by putting a wire over the nose up here. And then I pressed this this piece back on there and stripped the wire. I'm not used to tolerances being quite so tight. See if I can, I'll have to get this on an angle. Okay, so right here on the back side, I dremeled a channel. You want to take care not to go all the way through, of course. It already has a channel going from one side to the other, and then this is getting really difficult to handle. Yeah, you can kind of see where it's gray. Did the same thing on the back side of those steps, because the wire will come up and then kind of zigzag or stair step up the back of the steps and then go over and on to where the LED will be. That'll make a lot more sense once I have it installed when I move over to the second one. The trick is to glue that LED on the bottom of that step is not easy. Again, it takes a lot of patience. Get it to hold, and then I'll take my time and build it up with at least 2 layers of the CA so I know it's in place. And then I'll walk the wire around and use the tweezers and the little screwdriver and even the tip of a toothpick. And the reason I do that, you have to kind of walk it all the way down and around to the other side so you know how long the wire is. And that's probably one of the hardest parts, other than soldering them onto those tiny LEDs. And you gotta know what orientation to have each LED when you're putting it in. So what I'll do is I'll come in this side with the positive wire, and then that's what I mean. You gotta think which way the LED has to be facing. You want the light to be facing this way up when it's on that second step, the bottom of the second step, and then the negative comes out and has to zigzag down and across here, over, and then zigzag up the back side of here, and then come over. So I kind of pre-bend the wire every step of the way, and when it's done, it just, fits in there. It doesn't look like it's that hard, but it does take some time and patience. And you want to leave a little extra, about 1/10 of an inch, and you can always on this where it cuts across, you could do a little zigzag, or I think on the last one behind one of the steps I had just a little bit of a S shape, But since it's glued to the back of the step, you cannot see that extra wire. But if you don't have enough wire, that's an issue. You'll end up having to redo it. So again, it gets tricky because when I come up here, you got to think of that as the positive wire, because it comes in positive, comes out negative, but that negative goes to the positive of the LED. So you have to have it orientated the right way, so you don't get your wires crossed. And then the negative coming out will come down and go down that slot. And then I'm going to let those two wires, the positive and the negative, come right out where the ditch lights come out. So it'll be a seriesed circuit. It'll just come down there to that LED. Zigzag along the bottom of the walkway and all that, and behind the steps on the other side. And then I'll do the same thing back here. Now back here it already has kind of a, see that blue? It already has kind of a trace there, so I just use a slightly larger Dremel to make the little channel that I need. I'm going to run both wires up. One wire will go straight up and over to the LED. The other one will take a sharp left and then zigzag up those stairs and go over to the LED. Again, it'll make more sense when it's done. And then what I'll do is, when I've got it finished, you have a red wire that comes over and down through the LED, and then it'll come up, and then they'll be the same setup here. So the negative will go to the positive, run through this side, and come up and over. So those will end up soldered together on this side. On this side, the positive will go to the positive. The negative will get a 1000 ohm resistor and go to its corresponding wire. And I'll go through those functions and stuff when I get to that point. Okay, so I'm getting ready to do one of the truck LEDs. And that's the 0402 LED sitting there. This one just has a green stripe. If you can see that, it's kind of to the right. And on this LED, that signifies the negative side. So it's really no different than the larger LED that I did for the ditch lights. It's just smaller. And I basically solder it the same way. I may try to get one on camera while I solder it and someone else holds the camera. Same thing, you want to tin the end. You put a little solder, a very little amount of solder on the tip of your pencil or station tip, and then just come down and just, it's not quite a tap, you hold it for just a split second, and then I wipe the tip clean, put a very little amount again on the tip, and do the other side. And be very careful and examine that you did not accidentally bridge, because it's very easy to do, to bridge across from one pad to the other. And then, as I've done before, it's kind of hard to find stuff when I'm zoomed in. I tin the wires just like the other ones. I'll bend it slightly, bring it down into place. When I'm happy with the way it looks, I'll wipe the tip. I always have a little solder kind of curled up like that. Tap the end, come back to the wire. It'll be laid on there where I want it, just about like that. And then, like I said, I put the iron not on the tip of the wire, just overlapping it slightly. But that way you're not putting a bunch of heat right down on that LED, because it will not be able to take the heat. And again, you'll see the solder pool when it sets down on there, and then I pull the solder iron straight away from the end of the wire so it doesn't lift it off the LED. And then I'll pull up on the wire just like I did before and see if the LED comes with it, and then snip it, go over to the other side and do the same. So I'm going to do a pair here, and then we'll come back to that. I did go ahead and glue the little stair steps, so they're all ready to go. Now, orientation does not matter on these LEDs because, well, they just don't. They come off there and they'll come up through the top side here, like the ditch lights, and it'll be a series circuit, but there's no orientation required like there will be on the steps. Okay, I just wanted to show one more time. This is the lens is right up on a 8x zoom, and that's the LED tinned. So it's got just enough solder on there. You want the solder on there and on the wires, so when you bring the wires into place, they just melt right together. It doesn't take but a second or less. Okay, so there it is, soldered on there. It went smooth. I mean, it takes some practice, but once you get it, you got it. Moving the wire around once you have it soldered on there is not recommended, because you can have the best solder job that you can do on such a small surface, but the pad itself is gonna come loose off the solder. I mean, it's a very, very, very thin foil like material, and so if you're going to be messing with those wires much, what I would tend to do is put a little CA on the back side and work it around the sides to give it a fighting chance, because you only care about the light coming off the front. So if you put a little CA around the sides and the top and the bottom and the back and let that dry, it gives it a bit more resilience. But remember, if you're going to go and glue the back side of that to something, it is going to take a long time to dry, because the glue that's already there is going to soften. So I don't really need to do that. What I'm going to do is put a little CA on the back side, and then just put it on the pad that I showed. So there it is, just glued on that little stair step there, and like I said, I don't use very much of the glue at all. A little bit on the back of the LED, and then a little bit on the wires, and I'm going to let that set up, and then I'll go back and put a little bit along the sides of the wire and that little block, but I'm going to give it plenty of time to dry before doing that. And then when that's all set up, I'll step that down into the channel I created, glue it, follow it around where it comes up through the body, or where the body would be, just like the ditch lights, and I'll do that on both sides. Alright, so I got the truck lights in place. Kind of stair step down there, and I'll go back and touch up the red wire with black paint. I usually just use black wire, but I got some red that I need to get rid of. I probably didn't mention before, but this is very thin Circuitron ultrafine hookup wire, 15 thousandths. It is stranded, has about 4 strands in it, but that is some tiny, tiny wire. You use anything thicker than that, and you're going to have a challenge. That, and like I said, anytime you wiggle the wire once it's attached, there's a good chance you're going to end up taking the pad right off the LED. So I've got one step light. Let's see if I get in here. Either I don't have focus or I don't have light. But it's in there. It's underneath the second step. And then on the back side, I'll put a little bit of glue along the edge of the wire and the step on both sides, and then I go back again on the front. That thing's going to be out of focus more than it's in focus because I'm trying to do it by hand here. I don't know, maybe if I just lift it. There we go. So, kind of help hold it in place, I just run it right through the other side. And then I dab some glue on that second step, set it on there. Hold it down with the back side of the X-Acto or the screwdriver. I like the X-Acto because that way I can see exactly where the LED is. And it's so small, and I'm trying to place it in a very specific location. So the red wire will get put along the back edge of that step, and then you can see the stair steps in the plastic, so it'll kind of go around the step and then to the right and then down, and then just kind of stair step until I get to that channel. And then once it's at the bottom of the channel, it'll go through where the other ditch light goes through. So the black one will go the other way and go down stair step, go down that channel I pointed out earlier. It looks too dark to see. But like I said, the trick is you gotta bend all the bends in the wire before you solder on the LED and place it. So that's the trick. And then you have to think about which way the LED is going to be soldered on the wire. So the first one is pretty easy. Just figure out which side's positive and what side of the LED it should come out. So that black wire is pretty short. Once I step it down through there and get the length that I need, like I said, I'll snip it just a little long. Long is good. Not having enough is not acceptable. You'll end up not being able to go into channels and the cutouts the way you have to on this model. Some of them you can just tuck along where the steps meet the front, and then where the front and the underside of the walkway front is, you go right in that corner, but this one you can't do that. I think that's good. I mean, it shows that it's built well. So anyway, all this back here is dry. I can paint that at any time. And then what I'll do is go back, and there's really no hurry, but those two wires that come up, one of the reds and one of the blacks will be tied together. It doesn't matter which. And then those two truck LEDs will be in series. So anyway, that's where I'm at. It's just starting to get hairy. Wait until I get the this end done. Now in the other locomotives, since you can't take the top part of the body away without, I mean, they're usually glued on, then I have to find a path to run the wire all the way back to the rear here. But I can do this in two separate steps, and everything ends up on the inside, and then I just, you know, tie it together then, and that works really good. So anyway, I just put a little more CA on there and let it completely dry. And now I don't want to touch it for probably another at least half hour, because placing that is hard enough. And then, like I said, I build up at least another layer of CA on the sides of the LED and the wire to keep everything in check. So when I start bending those wires around, I don't have to worry about the LED popping off. The first one's easy. The second one gets kind of hairy because I'm not going to have near as much wire. It's going to come out the side there when I flip it around, and then every bend I've made, I almost have to straighten back out to get the length, the most length I can get. And then the front end is almost right on top of where I'm trying to, you know, hold the wire and solder it and everything. It gets really tight. But after the black wire's on there, I'll put another black wire on the other side, and it can be longer, so that's easier. And then I CA the LED on the stair and build it up again, let it completely dry, and then I'll go ahead and start setting the black wire down along the path. So that's how it goes. So the next step should show that at least the front end done, if not the back too. Alright, so I just want to catch this real quick. The one step light is in, and then you can see the path. I took on the wire. You can't see it at all. It's going to be painted black anyway, and I want to catch it before I painted it black. So it kind of stair steps, you can see. So the black wire that comes out is going to do the same thing. It'll go to the right and then down. And like I said, I'll have to use two instruments to try to kind of walk it along that stair steps. And you have to do that so you know how much wire it's going to take from where it's at and where the next step light's going to go, which is where that wire's going through the second step opening, just like this side. And then like I said earlier, you got to make sure the LED is rotated in the proper position, or it's going to be pointed the wrong way, or you'll have to cross wires. And you can see here that I'm trying. I usually don't ever do that. It's not the end of the world, it's just the way I do things. So I'll walk that over to that side, tomorrow. Cut it to length, and then I'll have another black wire, and then it's going to do what this red wire did. It's going to walk down here and go down the trace. I don't know how well you can see, but the red wire is in that channel that I dremeled. So when I look at it like this, you can hardly see it. The only red you can really see is what goes up to the ditch light. And I did decide to go ahead, I hope I don't regret this, but there was a huge blob of CA on top of this ditch light that was bugging me. And I'm going to go ahead and probably sand it just a little bit more. I've got some touch-up yellow that will match it. The only problem was the piece that went on there looked like the upright was a bit short. So I may have to use some styrene to build that back up, but like I said, it's used. It's in good condition. This one isn't as good condition as the first one. The first one I didn't have. There was a few little areas I touched up, but for the most part, I do need to go back, and it's got a slight vibration. So if I tweak the equalizer to have any bass, there's a little bit of a rattle in there. I know it's not the speaker, but the way you have to take the shell off is not real easy, so I'll save that for later. But anyway, I just wanted to slip that in there because yeah, once I have that walked over there, then you can see what I mean. This wire is going to be cut probably way down to about here, and then you have to try to hold the wire here and get it lined up on that LED just right. And that's where it gets tricky, is the second LED. And then on the back I'll do the same thing. I'll have a long one and then walk the little one, short one over, snip it, and have to do the same thing. But that's the hardest part. Alright, so I got the step lights in. Did a firmware update to the camera too, so hopefully that helps. I'm letting it go on auto. So you can see where the red wire comes up to the LED, and then the black wire, it's kind of hard to see. You can see that white clouding, because if I'm trying to get something to dry pretty quick, I'll blow kind of humid air on it, and the byproduct of that is that white gassing, outgassing that it does. Then this side goes up to the LED and then back down. So on this end you've got your positive and your negative. So, and then in the back it's the same thing. So this positive will tie into this negative. In the back it all goes down just one side. And then that little loop there, I had just a little extra wire. So I'm getting ready to paint all that, and I found out I'm missing a step. So hopefully I can order that. So I'm going to have to make one. But there's a, yeah, right there, a step missing. They did a pretty bad job of gluing, because when I went to put that LED in place, that step came out. So it's easier to glue the LED on with the step loose. So this is all squared away. Next I'll be moving on to the headlight. Come up here somewhere and cut it and put the LED right up on it. It's important to have the end as smooth as you can get it, so I'll work it up to about a 3000 grit sandpaper. If it's rough, then the LED is going to try to diffuse right there, and not as much light will come out the front. So I'll do that next, and then I guess I could cover those later, but the other one, like I said, had some kind of covering over the fans, but I will put the LED right over the clear part for the backup lights as well. So I got the wires routed roughly. Reconstruct the front here. It was in pretty bad shape. Had to cut and bend a few pieces, and hopefully that's going to hold well. And we got the step lights and the ditch lights coming in, and you can see where we got the truck lights, and they all kind of zigzag up behind. Only the outer ones are going to light now. I redid the wiring, pulled the old colors off. They were too short anyway. This time I put electrical tape up over this. That just kind of helps keep these in place. And I think I've got a slight rattle in my first one, so anywhere I can put some electrical tape, I'm going to try to alleviate that vibration wherever it's coming from. Went ahead and labeled everything because it's starting to get pretty hairy. Here's the, I already tested them. Like I said before, I was going to tie these two together, and then this will get the resistor on it for the step lights. So the only wire that's single here is the positive for the step lights. Yeah, everything else is twisted together. I've got some real small vice grips, and I didn't have to grind this down. Kind of got lucky. I just pinched with a lot of force. It flattened it, and then I twisted it. It took that little emboss right out nice and smooth, and that's where the current keeper is gonna get tacked in. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You got your pickup wires, front and rear. And so that's pretty much where it's at now. I'll start with headlight and tail light, and not much more to do after that. Just wait for the decoder to come in. So the LED for the headlight, I just put that together. Probably should have captured it, but like I said I was going to do, I just chopped off most of the light pipe, and I guess it doesn't matter where the other piece is, but anyway, cut most of the light pipe off. And is this it? Yeah, that's it. So before, the LED would face here. Well, it still does, but it's not going to be lit. And then come up through here, I cut it, and on the other side, like I said, I sand and polish it and put the LED right up to it. Have to bend the wires to a 90 degree to solder them on, and try to make it flush so the LED can not get pinched between that black roof and the actual cab roof. And then I just tack it with a little bit of CA so nothing can get moved around in there. Then when you position the headlight, you want to make sure it's not extending beyond the opening, so it's up flush. If you push it, it will go beyond that opening. And then the LED in the back. It's hard to see because it's already painted black. LEDs put on there. I did go ahead and put the black styrene. It should be centered. It shifted on me some, but really all it's there for is to keep from seeing through the fan shrouds. So I put one in the back and then one up front a little bit, and then put the LED up against the clear piece, glue it on. I put just a little extra glue around the edges because you don't want any black paint to seep between the two, because it's going to cut off the light pretty significantly. So I'm getting ready to snap the cab interior back in, and then after that I can put this back on the main body. It just slides right down these guides, and that's pretty much going to do it until the decoder speakers come in. Alright, so the decoder came in today. First thing I like to do is just go ahead and test it. And while I was doing that, I thought I would show the importance of a decent enclosure. So I'll fire it up. I'll let you listen to it without an enclosure, and then just put it in my hand to show you the difference in sound. So I got the decoder in place. I just put a temporary Scotch tape across there to keep all the wires just kind of in line. I want access to this end so I can plug in the current keeper. I do use a couple small dabs of CA to put in place. I do like to put several pieces, well, a single piece in several areas of electrical tape, and in hopes to keep any vibration from happening. I think I mentioned I have a vibration on the first one I did, and I think I know why now. Here's one of the speakers in the enclosure, and what I had done is on the opposite side there's a gasket around the front edge, and I put 4 very small dabs of CA on it and put it in place, and I thought that was enough to hold it. And when I went to move the speaker, it just fell out. So I think that's what happened on the other one. The other one fell out too. It was barely holding on. So in this case, I just took the CA, and once the speaker was set in place, just put a very small dab in 4 different places. That way if the speaker blows and I have to replace it, it's not permanently in there. And then what I just did is I go around the edge with Elmer's glue. So that's going to set up. And I'm going to finish this locomotive before I go back to the other one, but I'm betting, because I covered pretty much every other area that could vibrate, that that's probably what it is. And the other thing I did is I don't think I left a whole lot of slack on those speaker wires, which is a bad thing. So when I go back in there, I'll lengthen those wires. So there'll be one on each side of the locomotive coming up here and here for each speaker, the leads on both sides. On one side, the red wire will just come right up, connect to a black wire, no matter what side it's on, because you have to series them. And instead of it just coming up and over, I'll probably bring it up higher. So my point being that I've got enough speaker wire to pull the speaker back down underneath here without pulling everything apart yet again. So like I said, I'm pretty sure that's where the vibrations come from, and I've never had that happen like that before. If I put the glue on the face and press it down, I've never had an issue before. But I did put a little extra Elmer's on the inside of this little notch there, whatever, to seal it up. I mean, you heard how it sounded when I dangled the speaker, so I try to seal it the best I can in hopes of getting the best sound you can out of a speaker that small, which they do pretty good. So anyway, once that sets up, dries, I'll come back in an hour or two and probably start connecting the wires. I mean, all the resistors are in place for every wire that needs to be connected, so I don't expect it will take very long. I do carefully trim off the shrink tube on both ends right up to the edge of the board. Now on this side, that's so I can plug my current keeper in. And then, like I said, I'd include this back there, and its only connection, I mean, it's just a keep alive, and so it just plugs in. So other than that, like I said, all the speaker wire or the resistors are in place, ready to go on the body and the shell. I will parallel. That's why I've got an extra black wire hanging off there. That will parallel into this one. This is the number board. Everything else has got its own wire or has already been seriesed, like in the steps. I did order a backup motor for each one of these because they are older. I think they've been run for quite a while. They run smooth, but I just don't want to lose the opportunity while I got it to get those. And then the missing, I ordered 2 motors, and luckily they sold just the step. Because on some of the other exploded diagrams, it was all they had was the entire walkway. I really didn't want to have to buy all that. Alright, so got the decoder all squared away. Got the wires under control. I did go around and paint around the edges of the LEDs on the step lights black. I just want the light to shine out the bottom. I did have to order a step. It must be on the other side because I don't see it. So this is it.